Let me stop
Good. Okay.
being silly.
Well, hi, Vanya.
Hi, Angela. Long time no see.
I know it's been a while. All right. For those people who are out there listening to us, we hope there's a few. Who are you and where are you based?
Well, my name is Vanya Robinson, and I am based out of Washington, D.C. currently.
Awesome. Awesome. Neighbors. I well, we'll tell our audience here that you and I met as I was looking for a keynote speaker for Elizabeth Seton High School. And in my research of being a super fan of the Girls Auto Clinic
Very
and
super
Patrice
fan
Banks,
worthy.
that's right. And then Patrice's team connected us to you, Vanya, because you work on the foundation for her company.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that. What you do, what Shecanic does, and Girls Auto Clinic, and the whole thing. Let's talk about that first before we go into the way back of how you got here.
Okay. Well, if you're not, for those who are listening in, if you're not familiar with Girls Auto Clinic and Miss Patrice Banks, you're welcome. Because
Exactly.
now you know where you need to go and get some good information. So I actually came across Girls Auto Clinic because I was doing my own research to find women mechanics in the DC area, and shocker. I didn't find many, but what I did come across was Girls Auto Clinic, and I started following Patrice's story. Patrice is the founder and CEO of Girls Auto Clinic. She has been advocating for women in the trade. She's been advocating women's knowledge and confidence when it comes to car care. She's been advocating for those things for quite some time, about 13 years. And so I followed her story actually when I was going through auto school. I joined her community, the Shecanic community on Facebook. And I posted some questions here and there just because I had questions about, what I was doing actually, as I made a mid career pivot and I was going to auto school just after the pandemic. And Patrice answered a couple of my questions in the community. I was like, oh my God. But then I found out she's also one of the founders of an organization called WOCAN, which is Women of Color Automotive Network. If you don't know about them, you're welcome. You do now. And WOCAN was going to be hosting a breakfast at a conference that happens in Baltimore every year. So I made it my business to go to that conference. Not just to be present for the WOCAN breakfast, which was an incredible experience, just to be around so many other women in automotive, but I also made it my business to be there, to meet Patrice. And I did. I met Patrice at that conference, and she invited me to her shop. There happened to be a workshop at her shop that weekend, and she told me, "Come on up, come to Philly, and come see this. Come check out the workshop." So I did. I went to Philly. I went to Philly because when Patrice Banks offers you an invitation, you go. so so
Amazing.
I went to Girls Auto Clinic, and I mean, just pulling up to Girls Auto Clinic, you go online and you see it. You see the huge sign on the side of the shop. You see the big red hill.
Mhm.
When you're pulling up to the corner of Westchester Pike and State Road, and it's a it's surreal when you're pulling up to it. But I went and just to see her space, and I mean, she had one side of her shop is she has a 3 bay auto repair shop, and the other part, which is also a waiting area, she has a nail salon. So
So genius.
I mean, you can, if you
Brilliant.
search her,
Yeah.
she's done a lot of talks, and she's told her story quite a bit. So you find out about her past as an auto airhead, and how a lot of times she would combine her auto maintenance efforts with times that she was getting her nails done. So there's a reason why that is coexisting there like that. But
Mhm.
I went to the workshop, and it was an incredible experience, and I've been there ever since. So I became one of her workshop facilitators. And last year, we started talking about reactivating her nonprofit. which is called Shecanic Foundation. And so, I started working with her on the nonprofit last year. And when I left Tesla, I decided to focus 100% of my attention on building the nonprofit. And so I stepped into the role of director. So that's kind of the arc of the um, becoming aware of Girls Auto Clinic, learning about Patrice Banks, meeting Patrice Banks, and then working with Patrice Banks and really becoming part of the Shecanic movement, because it's more than a community. It's absolutely a movement.
Yeah, it is. The goal ultimately is to help. It seems like it's like two parts. Like one is women who want to get into the trade to become mechanics, but the other part is helping women feel more confident as they're dealing with their own automotive
Yeah.
issues.
Well, I
Is that
mean,
about the two parts?
like the core of it is, and there are a lot of similarities between my story and Patrice's story.
Right.
Um, Patrice talks about, she was a DuPont engineer before she started Girls Auto Clinic and really like lean full fledged in the automotive. And we talk a lot about being for all intents and purposes a smart and a capable woman. She was an engineer.
Yep.
Likewise, I have, coming from my background in operations and, management and, all of those, I'm very process oriented. I consider myself to be a pretty smart and capable person. But whenever it came to your car, it's like, uh, I need a man to help me figure this out.
Right.
So what she talks about is when she first started going to automotive school, she immediately wanted to share that information with other women. She
Yep.
immediately wanted to teach. I feel the same way because the information is out there, the information is accessible a lot of times if you know where to look. But you definitely want to be in space where it's comfortable to learn. So the core of it is really kind of creating spaces where women feel comfortable asking questions about something that we've been told is not for us.
Yes.
I don't know any woman that does not have a negative car repair experience. Whether and it doesn't even have to be car repair, it could be basic maintenance.
Yep.
You go to the Jiffy Lube to get your oil changed, and now they're like, you want conventional or full synthetic, you want your filters changed, and there are all these things, and like maybe about those things and maybe you don't. Ultimately, maybe you're making decisions to try to keep the cost down, but the point is that, right, we're often walking into the space not having enough information to make informed decisions. So the
Right.
first thing is, how do we make this accessible to women drivers? She has a TED talk, and if you look at her TED talk, which I believe she did right before she opened Girls Auto Clinic, the goal was to reach every woman driver.
Right. Yeah.
Because every woman should know about their cars.
That's
You
right.
should just know. It's just information that you should know. So, yes, so that is what is one of the focus areas. Also, you open Girls Auto Clinic. She opened Girls Auto Clinic with the desire to have, women staff, women techs, women service advisors, so front of house and in the shop.
Hmm.
And then you run into another challenge,
Yep.
where are the women techs?
Yeah. That's
Right?
right.
So now we have an opportunity to start addressing the trade. You
Yeah.
know, are there meaningful pathways for us to enter automotive, not just in general, but trade side? You know,
Right.
um, and then you do a search, and I've been really fortunate to come across a lot of women. Women who have been techs. Some women were techs once upon a time and left the industry altogether because their
Mhm.
experience was so horrendous.
Yeah.
Um, but there are a lot of hurdles for us to overcome. As far as training and growing. So, how are we creating women master techs who are able to teach other women, and create an environment where we're comfortable learning, asking questions, and growing.
Yeah. I
So
mean,
I think you're right.
that's,
I think
yeah.
you're right. Those are the two lanes. But there's a third actually because we also talk about early exposure. So the opportunity that I had to talk to the students at Elizabeth Seton High School
Mhm.
is we're making the effort to get to them earlier. We work with Girl Scouts troops. They reach out to us all the time,
Yeah.
for the girls who are wanting to get their car care badges, or lots of troop leaders and parents are like, my daughter is about to drive. She's about to get her driver's license, and I want her to be comfortable. So we also have like this youth lane focus where we're trying to get to girls earlier so that they see images of women doing this work. We're trying to resolve for the representation issue as well.
Yeah.
So in my mind, there are about three different, you know.
Yeah. And I think what's cool is, we wanted you to come be keynote speaker, and you said, well, can I have some time, have a student bring their car around, and that could be one of the sessions for career day. And we were just like, well, we hadn't even thought of that, which it's part of your job, but it was so amazing to have you talk to these. I mean, some of these young women are just now starting to drive, right? I think we had a few in there that had no driver's license yet. We had some
Mhm.
that did. We used a student's car, and she was so like, "Wow, I had no idea."
Yeah,
Um, but I think that it's so huge. It's just opening their eyes that it's not super. And we had that car and your car, so they could kind of compare two different cars. And I just feel like you did such an amazing job of just breaking down that little bit of, well, my dad says don't touch the car, or that little bit of like, I heard a sound, but I'm kind of afraid to tell my parents because they're going to think, I did something. It's like those are real teenage concerns, but to be able to give them a little confidence to ask the right questions. I mean, we
yeah,
didn't have a ton of time, but even just that little bit of time, I feel like opened up their eyes to something a little bit like
yeah.
it's not as intimidating as I thought. It's just I need more information and I can ask the right questions. So it was really, really nicely done. So.
Yeah, I think the student who did, and much appreciation to her. I think she had actually recently had to do some things. She had recently taken her car to the repair shop. So her ability to just ask some questions about like, well, what just happened? But also it was important to me to like pop the hood and like let's look under the hood, even to see how easily I took the engine air filter out. It's like
Right.
there are things under here that are really easy to get to. They're not scary, but I get it. We rely on cars, right? So ideally, we don't want to do anything that's going to disrupt our ability to get around. Most of us are
Mhm.
not, don't have the luxury of having a daily driver, a car I drive Monday through Friday, and then I have my Saturday car and my Sunday car.
Right.
Like we don't have that type of flexibility. So,
Nope.
so you're not going to take the risks to try to figure something out with something that you need to start.
That's right. That's
Like
totally
tomorrow
true.
morning, but we try to at least talk about things that you can touch, and things that you shouldn't touch, because there actually are things that you shouldn't touch. you know
Right. Yeah.
and we try to have real conversations and demystify it, because it's not, text figure out what's wrong with your car by, listening, seeing, smelling, hearing,
Use their
the
senses.
same
Yeah.
the same senses that you have, and you drive this car all the time. You know when something's not right,
Yeah.
and so you should trust that. And how do you translate something that's like, because a lot of times when something happens, we're also immediately going to, oh my God, that's got to be expensive. And that's not
Yes.
necessarily true.
Every time.
But like we say in our workshops, if you hear it, don't just turn the radio up like that. It's not gonna make the sound go away. It's not gonna solve the
Yeah.
problem.
Oh, really? Hmm.
Yeah,
Okay.
don't just turn
I'm
the
gonna
radio
take.
up.
I'm gonna
No.
write that down. If I.
Um, but yeah, but the thing is that like you have to confront it, and a lot of times we're afraid to because we don't have the information. you
That's
know.
right. Yeah.
So yeah, so I wanted to kind of, I think making it interactive makes it a little bit more real. It's not theoretical.
That's right.
We looked at this car, we touched stuff. My nice nails got dirty because I love it when my nails are dirty. And that, hopefully something stuck for them. But I
Yeah,
definitely answered a few questions for the student that let us use her car. I appreciated it.
yeah, that was great.
I hope she got what she needed after that.
I I think she did for sure. So speaking of young gals, let's go to the Wayback Machine. Young Vanya, you've told me was a tinkerer.
Oh yeah, my sister. You know the thing about it is, when I was working on my keynote speech, my sister. I love my family. They're my biggest cheerleaders. They've been huge supporters. When my sister, I was on the phone with my sister and I was just going over the speech with her, and she was like, so she listened quietly as I made my way through my whole. I was like, yes, and then I'm going to say this, and this is the point that I want to make. And when I got to the end, my sister was like, that's really nice. That's really insightful. I really love that. Like it's so good. But why don't you just say you were a tinkerer? Like, and she was like, because that's really, she said that's the thing that I remember when I told my family that I was going to go to auto school. You know, I thought they were going to be like, "Are you out of your mind? Like, what are we doing?" But my sister told me, she said, that's actually the most sensible thing that I think you've done. Like, it made complete sense to me. But yeah, because I tinkered. I took things apart in the house all the time. I took apart gumball machines. I took apart VCRs. Yes, when we had VCRs. So that should tell you a little bit something.
Back
You
in the
know,
day.
we're gonna act like we gonna act like your listening audience did not just sort of like figure out the ballpark of my age.
Right. It's all
The,
right. Yeah.
the funniest one is the zero gravity cliffhangers. So if you remember those were I had Barbie dolls, but I also had cars because I actually did like I like Legos, I like building things and things like that. But I had zero gravity cliffhangers, and those were the things. The track was like magnetic, and they would come whizzing around the track and go through the loop de loop or whatever. And I knew I could make them faster, so I rewired them. And I'm sure my mother did not really appreciate the fact that every time I was running those zero gravity cliffhangers, they would fly off the track into the wall, like dent the wall, or narrowly miss somebody's face or whatever. It's like,
I love it. I
but
love it.
I mean, I've taken laptops apart.
Right.
I just, if something's not working, my tinkerer just wants to know. Well, I think I could fix that. So yeah, like I've always tinkered, still do.
Yeah.
I just
Yep.
tinker on bigger things now.
Right. Yeah, now they and you said initially you thought you wanted to build rocket ships or
I
something
did.
like that.
I did.
Yep.
I had such a fascination with space. Um, and there wasn't really anything in particular that said, rocket scientist other than I'm a tinkerer and I like space. So
Yeah.
in my 15, 16-year-old mind, it's like rockets. Like that makes sense, so I wanted to be a rocket scientist. When you're in high school and you get to high school, you immediately start thinking like, what do I want to be when I grow up? Um, I was more or less a straight A student. I was an international baccalaureate student, so I had classes that were, college level,
Yeah.
advanced placement classes. I came from the talented and gifted program. So I was
Nice.
always sort of nerdy, I
Yeah.
guess, I was nerdy when it wasn't cool to be nerdy. Like, we didn't have cool terms like blurred. I love
Right.
words, we didn't have stuff like awesome con or whatever. But and I love that. I love that for the kids now because there are lots of ways to like be very unique and be authentically who you are. But I was very nerdy, so I was always my book bags were like carrying cinder blocks because they were always full of books. Like
Yeah.
legitimately was reading that many books. Um, but you try and figure out what you want to be when you grow up. And I'm like, well, I
Mhm.
like space and I like to tinker. So, and I like math and I like science. Those were really probably my favorite classes more than anything else. And so, so that's what stuck that's what stuck. That's what I decided that I wanted to go for. And so, junior year, when you're starting to fill out your college applications,
Hmm.
we had to mail ours.
Yes, we
You
did.
didn't get to
Each one individually, not like this group.
had to, you didn't get
Hmm.
to, there was no uploading, no. But and so your junior year, when you're starting to like fill out college applications, you're going to career fairs and things like that. I remember going to a career fair and NASA was there, and so I was really excited. And I went to the NASA table and I talked to the man who was there. I mean, I guess he was a rocket scientist. Heck, why not? And I told him what I wanted to do. And I said, I'm really excited. I'm about to go to college. I'm looking at colleges that have aerospace programs because I want to be an aerospace engineer. And he told me, he said, oh, well, girls don't really do that. And, because this was obviously before girls in STEM, or, any of those types of initiatives. And he suggested that I pursue something that was broader than that, like something along the lines of mechanical engineering, something that might be a little bit more applicable when I got out of school. And, like I said to the students, spoiler alert, girls weren't being encouraged to be mechanical engineers either.
Right,
you know?
right.
So it was a little disheartening. I left that, I left that interaction feeling like I was wrong,
Yeah.
and I did put on my college applications mechanical engineering. So I did I went to school for mechanical engineering. I was
And
in
isn't
Baltimore.
is it wait, before you go to where you went and everything, like isn't it amazing how that one thing kind of sticks with us?
Yeah.
So anybody out there that's working with kids or teens, like let them explore. I mean,
Yeah.
in the class that I taught, students, I'd be like, you can kind of do whatever you want. They're like, well, I can't be a ballerina. I'm like, well, you might not be on stage in New York City, but if ballet is your thing, then let's find a route.
Yeah.
Like, let's figure out why. Like, yeah, you might not be the most skilled because you haven't been
Yeah.
practicing for the last 10 years. But if that's the thing that you love, like, what is it about that you love that you can pursue instead of just like, well, girls don't really do that.
Yeah.
I mean, that is, so it's just stuck with you, but it also kind of
It
gave
did.
you a little bit of a drive
It
to
really
do.
did. I
Yeah.
mean, it really it stuck with me because it altered. It's like like I said, I'm a nerd. So like the science fiction stuff and like the sliding doors and hopping
Yeah.
dimensions and timelines or whatever. Like who
Yeah.
knows how that would have branched off.
That's right.
Maybe I would have tried it and decided I didn't like it. Like who knows? I
Yeah.
definitely did not like mechanical engineering because I didn't stick with it.
Yeah. That's what you went to school for was
That's what
mechanical
I went
engineering.
for. And not only did I go to school for it, I was a scholar. I received a full scholarship. I was
Oh,
one of two Baltimore Gas and Electric scholars. I went to the University of Maryland, Baltimore County, which at that time was really known for its Meyerhoff program, which was focused on black students in engineering.
yeah.
So I went to a school that was very much you know I fit into one of the initiatives that they were known for,
Yeah.
but ultimately it wasn't what I wanted to do.
Right.
So it kind of sent me down a whole other, like, this is the meaning of all around grandmama's house and all around the woods, you
Yeah.
know to get back to, I guess, sort of where you started, but not
Yeah.
you know
Right. Right. I mean, that's the thing is like the path becomes the path, and you just keep following it,
I know,
whichever way
doesn't
you.
it
Yeah.
infuriate you? Have you ever had people that said it's all about the journey? And I was just so aggravated. I would be like, what does that mean? And now I feel like I'm like, well, but that is kind of right.
I don't want to hear it, but it's kind of right.
I
I
mean,
get it.
but to be fair, sometimes you're just not in the place to hear it. And
Yeah.
sometimes you're just not in the place to hear it. And I think the other thing that I really hope that I conveyed when I had the opportunity to talk to the students was it's not always, rainbows and glitter. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like I can stand here now and because 20 hindsight is 2020, you know,
Mhm.
and I've gone through some challenges. I've gone through challenges with my mental health. I've gone through, really hard things. Now, comparatively speaking, there are people who have gone through things that I couldn't imagine.
Right.
But the reality is life, and it's not always going to be easy, and it's not always going to make sense. Like I did theater off Broadway in New York. Where that make sense? I mean, I
Right.
can tell you now, but at the time it was like, oh, I'm gonna be an artist in New York. That's what I thought. You know.
Yeah.
No.
Why not? You know?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's
So
amazing.
it's really, it's interesting.
And
Um,
then your career ended up becoming more in, like you were saying earlier, about operations
mhm,
and that type of thing. You worked in entertainment, and so
yeah.
it does kind of weave together a little bit,
Yeah,
right?
and it does, but right, like the journey, you're always gaining some more information.
Yes.
And wherever you are, like you're just there,
Yep.
you're doing whatever it is that you're doing. Like when I left school, because, spoiler alert, I lost that scholarship. Um, and I couldn't afford to stay in school. So then now we have to work, now we have to work. So now we're doing like call center work,
Hmm.
where can I go get work? And, so I ended up going into, data entry.
Hmm.
Right. There's another breadcrumb on age. But
Right.
like so I entered into the administrative professional lane.
Hmm.
Because it was accessible to me. Obviously I didn't have a college degree at that time. But administrative work is what I could get into. So data entry to an administrative assistant. I worked through a temp agency that placed me. Um,
Hmm.
you know, my parents drilled into us, decorum and professionalism and things like that. So those soft skills that are
Yes.
so important, right?
Yeah.
I showed up in the work world with those soft skills, and so so you find a place that likes you, that holds on to you, and then you're an administrative assistant. Okay, now somebody is seeing that you're diligent, you're detail oriented. I'm very detail oriented. I'm very process oriented. I like to find where there are gaps,
Yep.
or it's not even necessarily like to, it's just the way my mind works. So, so then you start to move to, from an administrative assistant to an executive assistant, to a senior executive secretary, so now I have exposure to the C suite, which puts you in a different category of administrative support. So for quite some time, I was walking the path of administrative support and trying to figure out what success looked like there. And at the time, right? It wasn't real obvious, because once you become somebody's assistant, right? One, there are a lot of stigmas about being an administrative assistant that really irritated me, because people would treat you like you didn't matter. People would treat you like you did. And let me tell you something to the listeners out there: the administrative professionals know all your business. The administrative professionals are your gatekeepers, and
Hmm.
they are the ones that literally keep the trains on the tracks. They keep them running on time. So, like, to disregard them, and not everybody does it. I have had the good fortune of having, incredible managers. One in particular who I really consider a friend, and I thank him for put me in a position where he said, I was the go-to person for everything. So then you start to find, then you see the special assistant, then you see, chief of staff, then you see chief administrative officer, right? So there's this whole pathway that you can grow in the administrative tract.
Yep.
Um, but now you start to see where some of my, disregarding certain populations comes in, because
Hmm.
administrative assistants, administrative professionals are largely women,
Yep.
right? It's largely, or it has been. I've seen efforts to shift that mindset, but it for quite some time was seen as women's work,
Right.
which is interesting, because that ain't how it started. The clerks started as men,
That's right. That's
because
true.
No, you
Yeah,
didn't.
that's so true. And also, I mean, one of my very first sort of, I'm gonna call it big jobs in New York at an ad agency, we did this little like management training thing. And I remember one of the executives that came in to talk, he said, here's the deal. He said, you're going to be dealing with clients throughout your whole career. You know, we have administrative assistants here at the office that, you know, hopefully you're treating your coworkers kindly.
Mm-hmm.
He was like, and just as importantly, when you're dealing with the client's admin, or if you're going to a client's office, that's the first face you see. That is the person you're going to, you know, if our client has an administrative person, and he just was drilled it into us. He's like, I mean, his thing was like, just be kind to everybody. He's like, I mean, it's
Yeah.
not that hard. But he was like, but especially to the gatekeeper of all the information. And they know everything that they're thinking behind that door before you walk in.
No, everything. And I mean, the other thing is, right, because curiosity is so important. And, it's funny because, um, I have this thing I do, right, because we're being vulnerable, right? I have this thing I do where I try to inject some humor when I'm a little uncomfortable. And so, like, I'm curious, right? But I used to say, like, I'm nosy, right? Which is not accurate. It's not that I'm nosy because I'm not that at all. I'm just curious. I like to know how things work. And so, in my last role, one of my last roles, like, I had good relationships with all the operational departments. You
Uh-huh.
know, there were centralized functions that affected everybody's job. I got to know the ins and outs of the processes for all the centralized functions. So I became the go-to person for everything. I knew something
Right.
about everything to the point where I could recall I could recall budget numbers. I'd be sitting in board meetings and they're like, well, how much is da 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 da? How much do we have in these contracts? And I would say 100,000, 130,000, just off the top of
Yeah.
my head because everything I had was in spreadsheets. I had organization systems. I was following the threads of multiple conversations.
Yep.
So and I understood how the dots connected. So really,
Yes.
it's like that tinkerer and is not very different from the really high functioning administrative professional because they understand how everything affects everything else. And if you understand that, then you can see where the process chain is broken.
That's
And
right.
so, like, where I would see, okay, so why does that keep coming up? All right, there's a way to do that easier. There's a way to do that more efficiently. And I would implement process.
Yeah.
It was also really important to me that I knew what my job was. I also knew what everybody else's job was. So, like, so how do I make it so that you can do your job and not stop? You know,
Right.
my executive was he was basically my charge, so
Right.
like if he had to stop, then I wasn't doing my job.
Right. Yeah. It's like
He
you're
was
keeping
blindsided.
everything running smoothly, and when we hit a roadblock, it's like, okay, what's the problem here? And
Right.
that is, it's a really cool combination of like your tinkerer, your technical brain, your the nerdy side that you talked about, and the soft skills coming together.
Hmm.
That's like huge. If people can do that, I feel like because those soft skills are a tough one. I mean, sometimes people are like, "Wait, but I know how to do the job." It's like, yeah, but you're kind of
Yeah, like
hard to work
you're
with,
the
or
N word. We don't want to,
yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
and you know, and as like women in business too, we've been told we got to kind of come in like blah blah blah, be hard, you know, hard ass, and I was like that. If you're
Yeah.
watching this, might call me out, but yeah, I mean, I was much more like that. And then I was like, what am I doing? That's not my personality at all. It's just
Yeah.
I was told that that's how you had to go to work, and so, but if you can combine that the technical skills that you have and that those soft skills, it's really amazing.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so okay, so we now have gone through the administrative corporate role, and
Yeah.
suddenly we're just like, hey, I'm gonna go to mechanic school.
Pandemic. No,
Pandemic.
with pandemic.
Oh, pandemic does it to us every time.
No, because the last industry, because I've worked in nonprofit, I've worked in for profit, I've worked in quasi government. I don't want to call out any particular company names, but I ended. Um, I ended. I was with. Well, I'll call out a couple because I mean you can go look at you can look at my LinkedIn. It's all listed
Yeah.
there. But I worked for Events DC for about 5 years. Events DC is the Convention and Sports Authority for Washington DC. Has charge over convention center. RFK Stadium was one of the properties. DC Armory. Pretty
Mhm.
massive and very busy properties. It has other missions, but I'm not doing a commercial for them right now. So sorry, guys. Um,
It's not about them.
I right. Sorry, guys. So I left Evis DC with my former manager to go over to XFL. XFL had relaunched the league, and there was a DC team, DC Defenders. I believe they're still playing, but we had just started our season because XFL was a spring football, and March 20th, I think, was kind of where it all kind of came to a head and everything ground to a halt. And I remember we were still all working remotely. Like lots of companies were really struggling with figuring out how to keep employees on and things like that. So, we were all released. And I kind of took that as an opportunity to sort of reflect. I enjoyed the work that I did in sports and entertainment, but I was trying to think beyond, where am I going? I had started to inquire about chief of staff roles or
Hmm.
deputy chief of staff roles, and I was having challenges, getting to the next place. And so I started to feel a little discouraged about my growth in that track. And so I kind of I took the benefits that we were receiving during that time to allow myself some space to reflect. And I had just bought a car. I'm an Audi girl. Anybody anybody that knows me knows I love Audis. I
Hmm.
had bought my first Audi right before that happened. So wonderful timing.
Right.
And now I found out that there was a car club, in the area, Audi Car Club. I joined it. It was a way to be outside, it was a way to be outside, be around cars and things like that. I was kind of, what's the term? I used the term. I was kind of like, I was a car enthusiast, but I wasn't like a hardcore car enthusiast. I had
Right.
different makes and models that I liked, but whatever. But I liked my new car. Like I thought she was sexy. So you go out and you're hanging out with all these people and you're seeing all the different things that they do, whether they're modifying their cars for speed, they're modifying,
Right.
they're customizing the look, they're wrap, they're, all of these things. And I started to do a couple of things. The first thing I did was I changed the grill on my car. And I did that work. Like one of the guys in the club showed me how to do it. He had tools and stuff like that. There are pictures that are probably like way back on my LinkedIn and me like up under the car, and I was just like, oh my god, this is so great. So it was like, oh, that little tinkerer was
I
like,
was going to say that
oh,
Tinkerer showed up.
that singer was like, oh, wait a minute. So there were other things that I started to get more interested in doing in my car, but like those ideas and those behaviors toward women in automotive spaces were very present.
Hmm.
And it could get uncomfortable sometimes when you're asking somebody to like, oh, I would really love to do that to my car, and it's being taken in a different type of context. So
Right.
I started talking to some me and some of the other women in the club. We started talking about wouldn't it be really cool to have workshops, because the guys were always like, oh, but y'all don't understand anything about cars, which is weird thing to say to women who are literally in a car club.
Right.
Okay. So we started looking for. That's really what started my search for women mechanics. And we had an idea of like it'd be great to do this type of workshop or whatever. And then we couldn't. Actually, there was one woman mechanic who was in the area. I reached out to her recently. She sold her shop a while ago, which I'm sad about, because she's really the only one that I
Yeah.
found out about, and she happens to have my last name, which is Robinson.
Oh,
So I'm really sad
wow.
about that. But Crystal Robinson Pointer, if you're out there, hey girl, hey. Um, but we were looking for women mechanics, and I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna go to auto school. it was really it was really that simple, and it's kind of like be the change that you want to see.
That's right.
Now, when I actually started going to school, I was like, what in the world are you thinking? Like, this is, I don't know about this girl. Like, I think you have actually lost your mind. But but that was the motivation behind
Yeah.
exploring auto school. And at the same time, I was following Girls Auto Clinic. I had learned about the lady mechanics in Nigeria. There's a woman who has trained thousands of women in Nigeria, in auto mechanics, and she was solving for a problem, right? She was solving for women who didn't have economic opportunity, you know. So that story is incredible. So I mean, there are some women who are doing work in the automotive space on the trade side who are doing some incredible things. And I'm looking for y'all too, because we should all be
Yeah.
friends. Um,
Okay. I mean, hopefully, I will tag along, I'll hashtag it and hopefully we'll find some more, because I think that's the hardest part. And you were saying even before we got on the video here about, trying to even cobble together a database
mhm.
nationwide of,
Yeah,
women mechanics, women owned.
women owned and operated. So if anybody's listening, and of a woman owned and operated shop, like tell us about it. If you are a woman that owns a shop, it could be a body shop, it could be a repair shop, it could be niche, it could be classic cars, it could be whatever.
Yeah.
But I think the thing that's been really interesting to me working with Girls Auto Clinic and Shecanic Foundation is how many emails we get from women all across the country who are like, we don't have anything like that. Do you know of anything like that that's here? And so that really kind of was the motivation behind me sending out a call. Like,
Yeah.
I know we're out there. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, so that was part of the motivation of that. Couldn't find it, decided that I wanted to go, and I was like, and I'm interested. That tinkerer is awake. I want to learn, and so
And that curiosity is a really great skill
yeah,
too. Is just to be like, let's see if I
yeah,
can do that. That's
yeah, for
awesome.
sure, for sure. But when you the oldest person in a class full of high school students,
I
and
was
you walk
there.
in the shop, the first day I walked in the shop, I was like, what are we doing? It's like the Macaulay talking, what do we
I
do?
was that because I did this. I mean, same but different. I worked in corporate jobs, advertising, and all that. And then I went to culinary school, which is also a trade.
Yes.
And so I went to trade school, and walk in there like, and it was like half the class was right out of high school. This was going to be their next step. And then some people who worked in kitchens and just wanted the certification, and then a few of us who were like career changers. And I was like, oh, but meanwhile, as the I don't know, probably the fourth oldest in the class, fifth oldest. I didn't miss a day of school because I was paying for it myself this time and was like,
Oh,
well, I'll be going to
I,
class.
look, I'm not gonna lie. Remember, I told you I was a straight A student. That
Yep.
that shifted a little bit because I would get calls and they would be like, "Miss Robinson, if you don't bring your butt to class, we going." And I was like, "Oh," like so I hung in there because I was paying for that every month, and I was like,
That's
"Girl,
right.
you got too much invested to
Yeah.
stop." But the funny thing is, what we've also been finding is that the women who reach out to us, because if you go to the Girls Auto Clinic or Shecanic Foundation website, there are forms that you can fill out. There's one that Become an Auto Tech is one of them. And a lot of the women that fill out that form, we're finding that these are mid-career change women. There are women who are reaching out to us asking, how do I become an auto tech? And they're in their late 30s, they're in their 40s, we
That's
even
awesome.
in their early 50s. So when we're talking about developing the workforce pipeline, it's not just how do we gain the interest of like high school students, because interest in becoming an auto tech has shifted there as well. Like what we're being told is that there's an industry wide shortage, and
Yeah.
that you know access to skilled technicians is a challenge, right? We say women are part of that solution, number one. So how are we reaching them, but also being realistic about, like, yes, we have to address the representation when it comes to young women and girls, we have to show them that it is a viable path that is available to them. But also we have to also meet the women who are mid-career, who are wanting to change their careers. We can do that work too. I was fully a tech. I was working alongside, guys who were half my age,
Mhm.
and they learned quite quickly after they kept trying to pick stuff up from me. I was like, I love the chivalry. I love it. But like I said, I've never seen a tech just pick an engine up out the car, you
Right,
know. So this notion that women don't have the ability to do that type of labor is ridiculous.
right,
There are tools to help you do things. Now, the only thing that I will say, because we do talk about it at Girls Auto Clinic, is taking care of your body, because it is hard on your body. So doing things like stretching, doing things like yoga, those are things that women would talk to you about. I can guarantee you wasn't no guys talking to me
Nope.
about like yoga. But yeah, but that's what we're seeing. We're seeing
Yeah,
a lot of women who want to make a mid-career change.
that's really cool. That's awesome.
I
That's
know
great.
we got to figure out how to make that
I
happen.
know. We
Make
got
that
to,
work.
well, to let people know. I think it's again, like you said, it's like people. Some people don't even realize it's an option or a choice. I mean
Yeah.
that's what we're doing here is letting people know that there's a one that the career path that you set out for. I always say this: it's not a corporate ladder. It kind of
Hmm.
goes forward and backwards and sideways and all different ways. And if you decide I'm going to try something different, it's scary for sure. You and I have both done
Yeah,
it,
it's terrifying.
and it's like we figure it out, right? Because that's what we have to do is figure out how to make it work. I knew that I wasn't going to work in like these high end kitchens,
Hmm.
Michelin star restaurants, but I
No
was like,
more lazy for you. No
and
more
no,
lazy.
I didn't want to be yelled at me. I yelled at enough. Also, I wasn't fast enough in the kitchen to be like in that,
Hmm.
but I was really good at prep. I was really good at the morning person who got everything ready and organized, like you said before about being organized.
Yeah.
I was great at that, and um, in my like future brain, it's like, yeah, I could own a bakery one day. I might not be the
Hmm.
one baking 6 a.m. because I can't stand on my feet as long, but
Yeah.
the idea of it is still there. And when I do get to be in the kitchen and do stuff, it's like I love that, right? It's not I can't, I've often had people say, "Well, you did that program, and now you don't even it's not even part of your job." I'm like, but the things I learned just
Yeah.
being in school, the things I learned with being in school with people from different generations, the internships I did, I can go into a kitchen environment and feel very comfortable and make people feel comfortable. So
Yeah.
that's important too. And you can do the same, when you meet these women saying, it's going to be a little scary, you might be intimidated, and that's all right.
Mhm. Yeah.
We'll get
Yeah.
you through it.
You should be scared. You should do the thing. If it scares you, do that. Cause I'm tell you, I'm pretty feisty. Depending on which sometimes a little less, but sometimes a lot. It's a lot of ghost pepper in there. But but I was overwhelmed. Walking in, and I was very self conscious about the things that I didn't know. I think what going into automotive and going back to school, what it forced me to get comfortable, because I got really comfortable with knowing a lot of things, knowing a little bit about a lot of things. I
Mhm.
knew enough to be dangerous about a pretty good amount of stuff. But
Yeah.
then you walk into this environment where you know nothing. You know nothing, and if you don't pay attention, you could hurt yourself. You could hurt somebody else.
Mhm.
I was overwhelmed. And then you're in the space with other people, younger people. I mean, not all younger, because there were people who were my age and older in the classes too. But they have some level of knowledge. They
Right.
can tell the difference between a 3/8 inch ratchet and a half inch. It took me a while. I was like,
Yeah.
it took a while before I could eyeball things and tell you that's 10 millimeters, that's
Right.
15. You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
I had to get comfortable with being way out of my comfort zone, like way
Mhm.
out of my wheelhouse. Even when people if I asked a question and I got a snarky answer, I had to like not internalize that, because I asked you something that I really didn't know and I need to know. And
Right.
so it's things like that that carry over into the work that we do in the workshops, and whenever we have the opportunity to, to talk to women, is this is a safe space. Like there are no stupid questions, because the
Yeah.
biggest thing that it keeps somebody from asking a question is, they don't want to look stupid.
Right.
They don't want to look stupid. They don't want to look uninformed. But I have learned in every instance when I have asked a question, there have been 7 other people in that room that had the same question.
Good question. That's 100%. That's what you learn with experience too, though, is that, um, I mean, I might look dumb, but that's all right. I have a question. I got to ask it.
My favorite, one of my favorite lines is, "It's better to be thought to be dumb than open your mouth and remove all doubt." And if opening my mouth to ask a question
Right.
makes me look stupid, then so be it, because I got the information that I was looking for.
Yeah.
But
You did.
but yeah, like I had to admit, like I don't know anything about this. I
Right.
don't know. And they say you can't teach an old dog new tricks. All these wonderful cliches that we have. We have such wonderful one-liners. I have better,
Right.
but anyway,
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I just went in there like a sponge. I went in there like a sponge.
Yeah, it's
Um,
awesome. I love it so much. Um, well, we also did schedule this National Car Care Month, correct? It was
April is National
April's also your birthday, so everyone say happy
It's
birthday to
my
Vanya.
birth. It is my birth month.
So I don't know how to ask this. Should we say, what is like 3 things that you want everybody to take away as it relates to their car that you would say, if you would just do these couple of things, it would really be helpful.
Patrice, cover your ears if you're listening to this. Don't be yelling at me like, "How could you not say that? Change your oil." We always say one of the most important things that you can do when it comes to your car is keep up with your oil changes. Um, Cars are complex interconnected systems, and every time I facilitate a workshop, I start by asking the question, "What does that sound like?" Car is a complex interconnected system. Guess what else is? You walk around with it every day, all day. It's your body. Like
Hmm.
cars are, there are a lot of similarity, a lot of correlations, I should say. Is
Right.
the better way.
Right.
So if you think about, like, the blood in your system, you know what I'm saying? Like the oil is running through your engine, it's lubricating, it's actually doing more things than just lubricating. So it's got some very important jobs. It's lubricating, it's cleaning, it's sealing, it's cushioning, it's doing multiple things. But if your engine has no oil, you have a big problem, or if you're pushing dirt throughout your engine because it's filtering dirty oil, you can clog oil pumps, you can cause all kinds of other problems. So we always say the most important thing that you can do is change your oil. So that's one.
Okay. Got it.
The other thing that I always say, because there are always things that you don't realize that you don't know how to do until you come to a workshop and it seems really simple. Like you wouldn't even think how many people don't know the year, make, and model of their car.
Yeah, we did that with the students, right?
Right?
Yep.
Got to know the year, make, and model of your car. And if you want bonus points, know the sub model and know the trim package.
Right.
Because all of those things, like I have an Audi Quattro A6 supercharged premium
Of
plus
course you do.
TDI.
Of
Yeah.
course you do.
Listen, I bought that car before I went to auto school and learned all the reasons why you should make more reasonable decisions when you're buying a
I
car.
love that too. Yeah, I hear you.
So,
I was
so
convinced. I was convinced to get an Audi years ago because the commercial talked about girls in STEM, and I was like, "Good on you, Audi! I'm going to go buy this car." And it was not great.
Yeah, Audi's got some women in some very important positions. Audi's as a company actually has women in executive
Good.
positions. I believe their chairwoman. I follow her. So Audi. Hey
Yeah,
Audi. Well, yeah.
you need someone to be a if you need a sponsor,
Put a
you
pin in
know.
there. So definitely know the year, make, and model of your car. Um, I'm gonna do a bonus for the third one because we don't have a workshop for electric vehicles. We're working on it. We're working on it, but we're just trying to format it in a way that's really useful for EV owners. But for electric car owners, know all the manual ways to get out of your car.
Oh, yeah. That's a
You
really
know,
good one.
if you have like some electric vehicles have manual handles and things like that, but if you have an electric vehicle where the handles and things are all electronic, it is a mandate that electric vehicles also have to have manual releases. Know where your manual releases are. I was seeing a lot of news reports about people who were trapped in their electric vehicles. If there was an incident or anything like that, you need
Yeah.
to know how to get in and out of your car when there are electrical issues. So
Yes.
that's my bonus ad.
That's a
Um,
really good one.
yeah, it's definitely like all about as much as we can focus on things that you can do for safety. Get a portable jump box, especially for the women out there. You know, we have these types of things available to us. They're not super expensive. Get a portable jump box. Get a portable compressor. Um,
Mhm.
have things. Have an emergency kit in your trunk, or have things like a window breaker that you can keep in your, and know the things that you need to keep inside the car, like a glove box or,
Mhm.
your center console versus things that are in your trunk. Because if you got to break a window, guess where it doesn't help you if it's in the trunk.
It's in the trunk.
Um,
Yeah.
the other thing that I'm going to plug and put out there is if you go to the Girls Auto Clinic website, Patrice has an incredible book. It's very relatable. It's called the Girls Auto Clinic Glove Box Guide. It
Okay.
is, all the things that you need to know about cars and car maintenance and things like that. Every time we do a workshop, I always encourage um, people to get a copy of that book and get it for any young girl in your life, especially if they're just driving. I mean, it's good for anyone, but I always encourage, especially for young girls. And one other thing that I just wanted to bring up because I want to make sure I got time. We are looking for sponsors. We are looking for
Yep.
sponsors to help us expand these workshops. I'm in the DC area. I travel to Philly, to Philadelphia, to the Repair Center in Philadelphia twice a month, sometimes to do workshops. We are actively working to expand those workshops to the DC, Maryland, Virginia area. One, we
Yes.
need a location where we can do those workshops on a regular basis. We would like to be able to make those workshops available to DMV residents once a month.
Hmm.
We offer the workshops for free. Our community workshops are free. Only thing that it requires is registration. Our workshops fill up immediately. Every time we open them up, they fill up instantly. We've had women travel from Canada, Texas,
Wow.
Georgia. They've traveled from all over the place. DC, the DMV area is another option. But it's important to us that we are able to keep these workshops accessible. In order to do that, we need sponsors. So we're looking for sponsors in the banking industry. We're looking for food and hospitality sponsors to give us
Mhm.
snacks. You know, the work
We need an automotive sponsor
we
like
need
Audi.
definitely automotive sponsors. Our workshops are part informational and part interactive. So the people that come to our workshops actually get to do these hands-on things to
Amazing.
their car. So we want you to build a relationship with your vehicle. That is the only way that you'll become more confident. That's the only way that you'll be able to make more informed decisions. And that is your contribution to helping us kick open them doors for other women in the industry.
That's
I'm
it.
all
That is
set.
that is a perfect way to segue out because I'll put that in the when we repost these videos, we'll put in the comments. We're looking for sponsors. I
Yes,
mean,
we
this
are.
should be a no-brainer for a few of these big
We're looking for
companies.
sponsors. And the other thing is we are looking for pathways to partner with the Girl Scouts of America. We get a lot of requests from Girl Scouts troops. Um, Quite a few. We are working on expanding our facilitator pool so that we can accommodate the numerous requests that we get. But we definitely have been receiving requests from Girl Scouts and also Jack and Jill. So,
All right. Okay. Nice. Awesome. I'm so excited. I think I mean, we're all kind of have a business crush on Patrice and what she does. I
yeah,
saw her at a conference. That's how I found out about what the work she does. So,
yeah,
and I know like enough about cars to be dangerous, even though I also worked on my ad agency days. Mercedes was one of our clients. I learned a lot about cars then.
yeah, yeah,
So,
yeah,
you
yeah.
know, it
This is
definitely was like, oh, this is,
knowledge
I,
is power. Knowledge
it
is
is.
power. Information is important.
Okay, so we're going to spread the word about sponsorships, a space
Mhm.
in the DMV for you to host workshops. Um,
Just
I
need
think
a
that,
parking
that
lot.
was that
It doesn't have to be a shop. We just need a parking lot,
big
open
parking
parking
lot.
lot.
Okay, I got that in my brain too. And then I think it's a great idea. The glove box guide
Hmm.
that Girls Auto Clinic created is awesome. That's a great gift for someone who's just starting out driving. Maybe someone just bought a new car and you want to be
Yeah,
like, hey, here's a reminder.
yeah,
That's a fantastic gift.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. So,
awesome.
you be seeing me around. Just keep an eye out for the blue hair and the
Keep an eye
red
out for the blue
shoes.
hair, the red shoe with the wrench and the high heel.
Yes.
Awesome. All right, folks, we will have all the information tagged here. And thanks, Vanya.
Thank you.